Let's move on to the Cardinals. 2021. Again, we talked a little bit about some of those takes from the Cardinals over the last few years. Again, started off very hot and then fizzled out over the second half of the season. But again, did play much better last year, even vis-a-vis the year prior to that. Win total expectations were 8. They ended up going 11-6, so blowing past that 8. Pretty much almost covered that number through the first 10 weeks of the season. Started off red hot, especially versus the spread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Started off 7-2 against the spread. And I know there's a lot of people fading the Cardinals. I was definitely one of them early on in the season. That ripped my face off. They ended up going 10-7 ATS, so certainly, again, cooled even from an ATS perspective in the second half of the season. Won a $100 unit better betting spread and money line, over $800. Pythag had them around 10.5 wins. Our Pythag 2.0 model had them around 10, so still roughly the same. Their mean power rank was 8th. So again, very elevated. And their 7-day power rank volatility was almost 5 spots. So really moving around over the course of the season. Another thing that I was surprised by when I was looking at the quarterback breakdown was similar with Russell Wilson, is I was under the impression, again, we know Kyler Murray got banged up. And that probably influenced his play. But again, when I think back, my kind of revisionist history is that Kyler Murray missed way more games than he actually did. So, I mean, we see here, Colt McCoy played 3 games, and then it was Kyler Murray the rest of the season. So Kyler Murray only missed 3 games last year. Yeah, and I think another thing that I would call out again is another really excess volatility when we look at the max leads that the Cardinals held in their game. So, I mean, they basically had a lead in every single game, except for 2. 2 games they didn't have a lead in. So in the other 15 games, they had a lead. And so even in the second half of the season, when Kyler Murray was struggling and ostensibly Cliff Kingsbury wasn't at his best, they were still able to put together 1, 2, 3, almost 4 double-digit leads in kind of those last few games. And so we look at the offseason changes. Signed Marquise Brown from Baltimore. Going to have, I guess, maybe a little bit of a potential chemistry play there with Murray, who they both played in college together. But other than that, they really didn't make any other meaningful offseason additions. Again, it was really mostly net losses. There's going to be 6 new starters.
I think the Hopkins loss is really massive. You make a good point with kind of chemistry and of all the continuity issues. Having Marquise Brown and Kyler Murray playing college ball together actually matters and really should kind of lessen the blow. And I think he represents a legitimate number 1 weapon. Taking a next step for Rondo Moore, if they maybe change his route tree and let him run routes past the line of scrimmage, that can go a long way. But there are reasons for optimism. And the wide receiver group actually, I think, is relatively deep. For a team that lacks depth, I think the receiving core presents options, and a good quarterback, a good receiving group can go a long way. I think the Bengals proved that last year.
The one thing that sticks out to me here is the loss of Chandler Jones. And I don't know for sure where that pass rush is going to come from on defense. We know J.J. Watt's still there. Obviously, he's had trouble staying healthy the last, 3 or 4 seasons here. And, of course, he's a little bit older. Judah, you mentioned Rondo Moore. I think he's a big key on offense there. If he's got the ability, if they can find ways to work him in, I think he can help that offense.
This team spent 2 first-round picks. They didn't have a first-round pick this year, and the last 2 have been, linebackers who haven't exactly panned out. Eventually, that's going to catch up to you on defense.
Got good speed, but yeah, they need to be able to put it together. And I don't know if I'm going to be so soon to write them off yet again, because it's still so early, 1 and 2 years in the league. The loss of Chase Edmonds, I think, is really big too. He provided such great spot duty for James Conner in these kind of 21st century offenses. You really need 2, 3 running backs to be able to kind of rotate and provide different angles and different talents and kind of bring something different to the offense. And I thought that Chase Edmonds and James Conner were super complementary. The more we talk about it and we look at, 2022, we look at the Cardinals 2022 schedule, something, Judah, we were talking about is trying to figure out, all right, what is priced into the market? How is the market evaluating the Cardinals? Are we talking about all the same things that everyone else is talking about? Or is there something else? what else is there that's going to tilt you in one way or the other? And as we kind of opened, we think there's going to be a very competitive division. Maybe kind of everything that's priced in is priced in, and there really isn't a lot of edge. That's one of the reasons why we don't really feel and have a lot of strong conviction in betting any of these teams. The thing is, what I would say is it seems like the market expectations for the Cardinals, given their potential ceiling, this is pretty depressed at 8.5. Given that they won 11 games last year, we talked about how they were competitive in almost every single game, had a lead of 15 games. And so it's not like the 11 is necessarily a mirage. And so I'm almost talking myself into liking the over the 8.5. Pythag 2.0, no bet.
I think, Brett, you make a very good point about the market. And I actually think, and maybe it's hard to know exactly what the market is pricing. I think this is certainly kind of the sentiment. The 2020 Cardinals and the 2021 Cardinals are almost the same team, and what's going to change in 2022. I think we've kind of illustrated that that's not actually true. What's frustrating for me is while I think that the market is actually coming at it from the wrong angle, I think we end up in the same spot, which is that I think the offense is actually going to be better. The defense is fraudulent to me. But if you're relying on Marcus Golden and what's left of J.J. Watt to be your pass rush without pretty good secondary, your defense is probably not going to be good. So I think there's a massive regression on their defense coming. There's really no talent there.
When we look at the total scoring margin over expected, so how many points is this team expected to score and how many points are they expected to give up on a week-to-week basis? They were plus 22.5 points. And 80% of that was actually from the defense outperforming and not from the offense outperforming, which I feel like if you kind of just asked anyone, people would say that this is mostly an offensive-driven team and that if they're going to beat expectations, it's coming from the offense. But actually last year, a super majority of it actually came from the defense. And we know that they've lost a lot of pieces. We've lost their quarterback on the defense, Chandler Jones. If you're going to experience a major regression from that defense, that could actually eat into a lot of those games.